Hello, and how are you? My name is Ayu Mwangi. I am a communication professional, and I would want to welcome you to this series of podcasts in which we talk about communication and organizational management. In this episode, I would want to talk about how to handle difficult leaders. The age-old leadership principle proclaims that leadership is influence, that leadership is the ability to change people's minds, the way they do, the way they behave, the way they think, without exerting coercion or without undue authority over them, but making them achieve results without being too pushy. For any leader, the overriding goal is actually to create other leaders. Now, if you are a leader who does not create leaders, and that most of your people end up as followers, then you do not qualify a leader. In fact, one of the observations says that if you're a leader and you find that there are no people who are following you, then you are basically taking a walk. There is nothing you are doing. So leadership enables leaders to create people who can be able to do the same thing as he can do when he's not there. They can do it without being coerced, without undue authority, without an undue influence, without feeling that they are being overly burdened, and achieve results in the same way as the leader would want. So leadership as a principle of management is fairly a new practice, because previously we had theories of management that looked at employees or the internal publics as part of the production process. And therefore, management did not care much about the feelings of the people whom they were leading. Management did not give a lot of consideration about whether you felt motivated or the conditions were not conducive for you to work. They did not give that a lot of consideration. So therefore, management at that time then looked at employees as things that can be manipulated. They can be pushed. Authority can be applied unto them so that they can produce or they can give optimum results. But with the rise of leadership, with the rise of leadership and management research, it has come to be noticed that when people feel that they are wanted, their input is considered, then they become more and more productive, and they help the organization to achieve its goals without undue influence. The feelings of employee are critical in achieving production targets, in creating innovation, and enhancing creativity. However, there are still some leaders who are still caught up in the old way of doing things, where they want to be seen as infallible, as unforgiving, unbreakable, that they cannot be broken by the needs of an employee. They therefore want to appear detached. They want to micromanage employees. They end up as workplace bullies rather than leaders. And I am saying this with a lot of humility because I have had a chance where I've had to work with leaders who are bullies, whose only mission is to want to manage even the minutest thing that you do on your desk. They want to even know who you are talking to. They want to know how you are thinking. I think even if they had a chance, they would even follow you to your house to see what you do, what you eat, how you sleep, and some of these very non-work related things. And therefore, these kind of leaders end up being very bad leaders. They do not inspire. A study carried out on 4,500 workers, public service workers in the Netherlands, indicated that workload has nothing to do with workplace depression. It is actually the leader who depresses the workers and not the workload. It was also observed that employees do not leave bad workplaces. They leave bad leaders. So a bad leader, therefore, is not able to engage, involve, motivate, because they are driven by the fear that they are seen as weak. And therefore, they end up wanting to create human machines, amongst their employees. And this is counterproductive because people now start getting stressed and wanting to look for another place where they can work. These leaders are withdrawn from their employees. They do not want to interact with them. They do not want to understand the challenges that they are going through. They want to be seen, if we were to say, as small gods to be worshipped. There is none like you. There is no other like you. You deserve all our praises. We need to worship you. And ultimately, they do not get to understand what goes through the minds of their employees, what kind of solutions they can offer, what kind of innovations they have. And people will just walk away from these bad leaders, as we have observed. What happens then is that the bad leader, they will seek to impose authority over the employees rather than influencing them to achieve what they want to achieve. Imposition will demand action. It will come with certain consequences if employees do not meet the demands of the leader. Ultimately, these employees end up as machines or human machines that are only there for production purposes. And I have worked in an organization where we were not human. Our feelings were not considered. We are more of machines. The way in which you are pushed makes you feel like you are more or less like a machine. Bad leaders, therefore, lack the emotional intelligence to be able to interact with their employees in such a way that they can make them become more productive, more creative, more innovative for the organization. So how then do you deal with a bad leader? Now, one of the basic considerations that you can make is to consider your bad boss as a bad client. So the principles of how you deal with a bad client, and we will be talking about bad clients or dissatisfied customers, is to deal with the boss as if he's a dissatisfied client or a bad client. If you know that you are dealing with a bad client, then one of the things that you need to do is to actually be ahead of the client, because you can be able to anticipate what they think, how they think, the way they react, and how you deal with them to be able to bring down their emotions. So you need to also understand what is it that motivates them. If you know that the boss is motivated by action A, then you can always be ahead and take the action that you know motivates them. So you need to recognize their successes. One thing you realize is that a bad boss is actually driven by fear and weakness. And because of the fear and the weakness, they end up becoming incompetent in the eyes of their followers. So don't concentrate on that, but instead recognize what is it that they succeed in. What have they done that came out very well? Don't concentrate on their incompetence, because if you do that, then it agitates them and they continue becoming much more difficult. So essentially what we are saying here is that you need to know how to work around their weaknesses. How do you go around their weaknesses? Although I must admit, it's not instant coffee. Some of them are actually very difficult people. Some of them are actually people who are led by moods. Today he's in a good mood. Tomorrow he's in a bad mood. Or you are having a very good meeting, and somewhere along the way they just change and become difficult people. So for you as an employee working under a difficult leader, then you need to know that you can always work around their weakness. And I'm not talking about praise singing. There are people who only sing the praises to their leaders to a point where now they cannot really advise them on what needs to be done. Further, do not let their incompetence ruin your goals. What is it that you need to achieve? Do not let their poor judgment, their incompetence, ruin what you intend to achieve in the long run. If you are here to run and learn as much as you can, make use of that particular chance. If you are here to grow as much as you can, regardless of their incompetence. And finally, you need to know how to speak up, and respectfully so. You need to always be able to pass your point without being abrasive or without being arrogant, so that even as they sit down and go through the events of the day, that point that you raise to them can always ring in their mind. So that is basically a guideline on how you can deal with a bad leader. And I hope this podcast is of help to you in how to deal with your bad leader or bad boss. Thank you very much for watching this podcast, and I would want to encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, because this is the only place where we learn how we can lead organizations through strategic communication management. Watch out for the next podcast.